He never asked for this marriage. He never expected a second chance. But when two hearts are tied by force, what happens when they begin to choose each other instead? Thank you so much for watching and for all your comments. Let me know at the end if you liked the story, and where you're watching from and why you're following this. The morning sun painted the Arizona sky with streaks of amber and gold as Eliza Morgan stepped off the train at Fort Defiance. The year was 1876, and at 22, she had traveled farther from her Boston home than she'd ever imagined possible. Her father's death had left her with no choice but to accept her uncle's invitation to live with his family in this remote outpost, where he served as the Indian agent between the U.S. government and the Navajo people. Miss Morgan? A tall man with a weathered face and kind eyes approached her. I'm Thomas Wilson, your uncle's assistant. He sends his apologies for not meeting you personally. There was an urgent matter with the tribal council. Eliza nodded, adjusting her bonnet against the relentless sun. I understand. Thank you for coming, Mr. Wilson. As they rode in a buckboard wagon toward her uncle's residence, Eliza took in the vast, harsh landscape, so different from the lush greenery of Massachusetts. Red rock formations rose in the distance and sparse vegetation dotted the dusty earth. It takes some getting used to, Thomas remarked, noticing her wide-eyed gaze. But there's a beauty to this land once you learn to see it. I'm sure there is, she replied, though uncertainty colored her voice. When they arrived at her uncle's substantial adobe home on the edge of the fort, Eliza was greeted by her Aunt Margaret, a stern-faced woman whose tight smile didn't reach her eyes. You finally arrived, Aunt Margaret said, ushering her inside. Your uncle will return by supper. I'll show you to your room. You must be exhausted from your journey. Eliza followed her aunt through the house, noting the curious blend of Eastern refinements and local craftsmanship. Navajo rugs adorned wooden floors, and pottery pieces sat alongside silver candlesticks from Boston. That evening, Eliza met her Uncle William, a broad-shouldered man with a booming voice and calculating eyes. My dear niece, he said, embracing her stiffly, welcome to your new home. I trust you'll find your place here quickly. We've arranged for you to assist at the school for Navajo children. Your experience as a teacher's assistant in Boston will serve you well. Thank you, Uncle. I'm eager to be useful, Eliza replied, though she sensed there was more to this arrangement than simple charity toward his deceased brother's daughter. The next day, as Thomas escorted her to the small schoolhouse, he spoke in hushed tones. Your uncle has grand ambitions, Miss Morgan. He believes his position here could lead to political appointments back east if he manages the Navajo situation successfully. The Navajo situation? Eliza asked. Thomas's expression grew somber. There are tensions. Many Navajo returned from forced internment at Bosque Redondo just 8 years ago. Trust is fragile. At the schoolhouse, Eliza met Sarah Cunningham, the primary teacher, whose genuine warmth provided a stark contrast to Aunt Margaret's cold reception. The children are wonderful, Sarah told her as they prepared lessons, eager to learn, despite everything their families have endured. When the children arrived, Eliza was struck by their bright, curious eyes and shy smiles. Throughout the day, one girl named Lily particularly captured her attention with her quick mind and artistic talent. After school, as Eliza gathered her belongings, she noticed a tall figure standing at the edge of the schoolyard, a Navajo man with proud features and a jagged scar running from his left temple to his jaw. He wore traditional clothing, but stood with the bearing of a warrior. Their eyes met briefly before he turned away, disappearing into the growing shadows. That's Ashki Diggin, Sarah whispered beside her. He's Lily's older brother, one of the respected warriors of the tribe. The scar came from defending his family during the long walk to Bosque Redondo. He seems watchful, Eliza observed. He doesn't trust the government representatives, and with good reason. Sarah sighed. But he's respected among both his people and those at the fort who can see beyond prejudice. He trades horses and serves as a translator when needed. That night, Eliza couldn't stop thinking about the warrior's penetrating gaze, as if he had been evaluating not just her, but her intentions. Little did she know that in her uncle's study, a conversation was taking place that would alter the course of her life. The Navajo Council grows restless with our land proposals, Uncle William was saying to Thomas. We need to strengthen our position, create bonds that can't be easily broken. What are you suggesting, sir? Thomas asked. William Morgan's eyes narrowed. My niece may prove more valuable than I initially thought. The warrior Ashkey has influence with the council elders. A marriage alliance could serve our purposes quite well. Sir, you can't possibly mean— I most certainly do, William cut him off. Arrangements will be made. She'll understand her duty to family and country. Outside the study door, Eliza's hand flew to her mouth as she stifled a gasp. Her uncle's words echoed in her mind as she fled silently to her room, her heart pounding with fear and disbelief. 3 weeks had passed since Eliza's arrival at Fort Defiance, and each day brought her closer to understanding the complex dynamics between the Navajo people and the government representatives. She had thrown herself into teaching, finding solace in the children's eager minds and open hearts. Lily, especially, had become a bright spot in her days, often staying after lessons to show Eliza her intricate drawings of plants and animals. Miss Morgan, look! Lily held up a drawing of a blue bird perched on a juniper branch. I saw this one near our home yesterday. It's beautiful, Lily. Eliza smiled, genuinely impressed by the girl's talent. You capture the essence of things so perfectly. As they worked together, Eliza gently asked, Would you teach me some Navajo words? I'd like to learn. Lily's face brightened. My brother says understanding someone's language is the first step to respecting them. Your brother is wise, Eliza replied, thinking of the scarred warrior she had now glimpsed several times around the fort. Always watchful, always distant. After school that day, Eliza was surprised to find Ashkey waiting outside. He stood straight-backed beside a magnificent painted horse, his expression unreadable. Miss Morgan, he said, his English clear and deliberate. My sister speaks highly of you. I would like to show you something if you are willing. Eliza hesitated, glancing toward the fort. She had been avoiding her uncle since overhearing his shocking plans, making excuses to take meals in her room or staying late at the schoolhouse. The thought of confronting him terrified her, but so did the prospect of being forced into a marriage with a stranger, even one as intriguing as the man before her. What would you like to show me? She asked cautiously. A place important to my people, to understand why we fight to keep our land. His dark eyes studied her face. You teach our children. You should know what you are teaching them to lose or preserve. The challenge in his words struck her deeply. I'll come, she decided, ignoring the voice of propriety that warned against riding out alone with a Navajo warrior. He helped her mount his horse, then swung up behind her with fluid grace. They rode in silence, the landscape opening before them as they left the fort behind. After an hour's ride, they reached a hidden canyon where a small spring created an oasis of greenery amid the red rocks. Dismounting, Ashkey indicated ancient drawings etched into the stone walls. My ancestors recorded our history here for generations, he explained. Before the long walk, before the treaties, this place tells who we are. Eliza moved closer to the petroglyphs, fascinated by the spirals, animal figures, and human forms. It's beautiful, she breathed. Thank you for showing me. You are not like the others at the fort, he observed, watching her intently. You listen to Lily. You try to understand. I want to understand, she admitted. What happened to your people was wrong. Ashkey's expression softened slightly. My grandfather was a healer. He taught me that wisdom comes from seeing with more than your eyes. He paused. I have been watching you since you arrived. Your spirit is strong, but troubled. Eliza lowered her gaze, unsure how to respond to his perception. I'm trying to find my place here, she finally said. Are you? He gestured toward the fort in the distance. Or are you merely accepting the place others have chosen for you? His question pierced through her defenses, touching on the very fears she'd been harboring since overhearing her uncle's plans. Before she could respond, Ashkey spoke again. There are rumors at the fort. Your uncle speaks of alliances through marriage. Eliza's face flushed. You know about that? I have ears among the white men, as they have ears among my people. His voice remained even, but his eyes held intensity. What do you want, Eliza Morgan? The directness of his question and the use of her given name startled her. I want to choose my own path, she admitted, not have it dictated by others who see me only as a means to their ends. Ashkey nodded slowly. Then we are not so different. He offered his hand to help her back onto the horse. It grows late. We should return. As they rode back toward the fort, Eliza felt a strange sense of connection to this warrior, with whom she had exchanged barely 100 words. There was a dignity in his manner, an intelligence in his eyes that belied the savage stereotypes perpetuated at the fort. Upon their return, they were met by Thomas Wilson, whose worried expression turned to relief, then stern disapproval. "Miss Morgan, your uncle has been looking for you. He was concerned about your absence." "Mr. Wilson, Ashkey was kind enough to show me some historical sites important to the Navajo people. It was educational," Eliza stated firmly, dismounting without assistance. "Nevertheless, riding out unaccompanied was imprudent," Thomas replied, his eyes darting between them. Ashkey remained mounted, his posture regal. "The teacher is safe with me, Wilson, more than she might be elsewhere." The loaded meaning behind his words was unmistakable. After Ashkey departed, Thomas escorted Eliza toward her uncle's house. "You don't understand what you're doing," he murmured. "Your uncle has plans." "I'm well aware of his plans, Mr. Wilson," Eliza cut in, her voice low but resolute. "I overheard him discussing them with you." Thomas paled. "Then you know why today's excursion will only complicate matters." "Perhaps I welcome the complication," she replied, surprising herself with her boldness. At dinner that evening, Uncle William was unusually attentive, asking about her teaching and making seemingly benign comments about the importance of cooperation between cultures. Aunt Margaret watched with tight lips, occasionally contributing clipped observations about the unsuitability of the desert climate for a Boston-bred lady. After the meal, William asked Eliza to join him in his study. Her heart hammering, she followed him into the book-lined room. "My dear," he began, pouring himself a brandy, "I've been corresponding with officials in Washington about our situation here. They're most interested in peaceful solutions to the land disputes." Eliza remained silent, waiting for him to reveal his true purpose. "I've been approached by tribal representatives about a rather unique opportunity," he continued, swirling the amber liquid in his glass. "The warrior Ashkey Diggin holds considerable sway with the tribal council. An alliance between our families would create inroads that could benefit both sides." "An alliance?" Eliza echoed, feigning ignorance. "A marriage, my dear. I've taken the liberty of entertaining the possibility." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "It would be an unprecedented step toward peaceful relations. You would be doing a service to your country, to progress itself." Eliza's mind raced. This was not a suggestion, but a declaration of her fate already decided. Yet strangely, after her afternoon with Ashkey, the prospect of marrying him didn't fill her with the dread she had initially felt. What troubled her was her uncle's manipulation, his use of her as a political pawn. "And what does Ashkey think of this arrangement?" she asked, keeping her voice steady. William's expression flickered with surprise at her familiar use of the warrior's name. "He understands the advantages. The Navajo Council values his judgment, and he has agreed to consider the arrangement." "I see," Eliza said, though what she truly understood was that both she and Ashkey were being maneuvered into positions neither had chosen. "I'll need time to consider this proposal." "Of course, my dear. But don't deliberate too long," William replied, his tone hardening slightly. "Winter approaches, and with it decisions from Washington about the reservation boundaries. Timing is essential." As Eliza left her uncle's study, her mind whirled with conflicting emotions. The prospect of being forced into marriage was abhorrent, yet Ashkey himself was not. There had been something in their interaction today, a mutual recognition, a shared understanding, that had touched her deeply. In the privacy of her room, Eliza made a decision. If she was to navigate this situation, she needed more information, more understanding, and most importantly, she needed to speak with Ashkey again, not as a pawn in her uncle's game, but as a woman determining her own future. The following morning, Eliza rose before dawn, her determination hardened by a restless night of contemplation. She dressed quickly in her simplest dress and woolen shawl, then slipped out of the house while the household still slumbered. The air was crisp with autumn's bite as she made her way to the trading post on the edge of the fort, where she knew Ashki occasionally brought horses to trade. Her gamble paid off. As the sun crested the eastern mesas, she spotted his distinctive figure approaching with 2 horses in tow. He noticed her immediately, his stride faltering slightly before he continued toward the post. "Miss Morgan," he greeted her, his voice neutral but his eyes questioning. "You're abroad early." "I needed to speak with you," she said directly, drawing a deep breath. "Privately." Ashki tied his horses to the hitching post and motioned for her to follow him to a small clearing behind the trading post where supply wagons usually gathered. At this hour, it was deserted. "My uncle has informed me of his plans," Eliza began without preamble. "This arrangement between us." Ashki's face remained impassive, but his shoulders tensed. "And what do you think of the Indian agent's scheme?" "I think we are both being used as pieces in a game neither of us chose to play," she replied honestly. "But before I decide how to respond, I want to understand your position. Have you actually agreed to this?" A hint of surprise flickered across his features at her directness. "My situation is complicated. The council elders see advantages in forming bonds with those who determine our fate. Some believe your uncle's promises that our lands will be protected if our peoples are joined." "Do you believe him?" Eliza asked, studying his face. Ashki's laugh held no humor. "I have heard white men's promises before. They are like tracks in sand, gone with the first wind." He looked at her intently. "But this is not just about land. There are children in our tribe who need protection, education that will help them survive in the changing world. Your teaching helps them." Eliza considered his words. "So you would agree to this marriage for your people's sake?" "I would consider it," he corrected, "but I would not force you. That is the white man's way, not mine." His answer touched her. "My uncle seems to think the decision has already been made." "Your uncle sees what he wishes to see." Ashki's gaze softened. "Among my people, marriage is sacred. It must be entered willingly with open eyes and heart." A comfortable silence fell between them, broken only by the distant sounds of the fort coming to life. "Will you tell me about yourself?" Eliza asked suddenly. "Not what others say about you, but who you truly are." Ashki seemed taken aback by the request, but after a moment's consideration he began to speak. He told her of his childhood among the canyons and mesas, learning from his grandfather the traditional ways of his people. He spoke of the trauma of the long walk when he was just 13, of watching elders die on the forced march to Bosque Redondo, and of the 4 years of internment there. The scar on his face came from defending his sister from a soldier's unwanted advances during that time. "When we returned to our homeland, I vowed to protect my people however I could," he explained. "Sometimes that means fighting, sometimes negotiating, sometimes—" He paused, looking at her, "considering alliances I never expected." "And what of your heart?" Eliza asked softly. "Is there no one among your people you would choose instead?" A shadow passed over his features. "There was someone once. She died at Bosque Redondo, along with the child she carried." His voice grew distant. "For many years after, I closed my heart to such possibilities." "I'm sorry," Eliza whispered, genuinely moved by his loss. "And you?" Ashki asked, turning the question back to her. "Is there no suitor in Boston who holds your affections?" "No," she admitted. "My father's illness consumed our lives for years before his passing. There was little time for social engagements." She hesitated, then added, "But I always hoped to marry for love, not convenience. It seems a foolish notion now." "Not foolish," Ashki said quietly. "Sacred." The sound of approaching voices forced them to end their conversation. As they parted, Ashki spoke quickly. "Meet me at the canyon I showed you, 3 days from now, when the sun is highest. We have more to discuss." Eliza nodded, her heart pounding with something that felt surprisingly like anticipation rather than dread. The next 3 days passed with excruciating slowness. Eliza went through the motions of teaching, all the while acutely aware of her uncle's watchful gaze. He had begun inviting tribal elders to dinner, making grand pronouncements about cooperation and shared futures, while pointedly including Eliza in the conversations. On the 3rd day, she told Sarah she needed time alone and would not return to the fort until late afternoon. Sarah, who had become a trusted friend, asked no questions but pressed a small parcel of food into her hands with a knowing smile. When Eliza reached the canyon, Ashki was already there, sitting on a rock beside the spring, whittling a piece of wood with a small knife. He looked up as she approached, and something in his expression made her heart skip. A warmth, a recognition that hadn't been there before. "You came," he said simply, setting aside his carving. "Did you doubt I would?" she asked, dismounting with the skill she'd developed over recent weeks. "No," he admitted. "I have come to expect courage from you." They sat beside the spring, sharing the food Sarah had provided, and speaking of matters both profound and mundane. Ashki told her stories of his people, legends of creation and harmony with the land. Eliza shared memories of Boston, of libraries and theaters and snowfalls that transformed the city into a white wonderland. As the afternoon progressed, Eliza found herself drawing closer to him, captivated by the depth of his thoughts and the gentle humor that occasionally broke through his reserved demeanor. "Why did you really agree to consider this marriage?" she asked finally, the question that had been foremost in her mind. Ashki was silent for a long moment. "When you first arrived, I watched you with the children. You treated them with respect, not condescension. You listened to their stories. You saw them." He met her eyes directly. "Then I began to see you. Not just the agent's niece, but a woman with her own mind, her own spirit." He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small object, a carved wooden bird, painted blue like the one in Lily's drawing. "I began this the day after we first rode here together. I found myself thinking of you, of your kindness to my sister, of your willingness to look beyond what you've been told about my people." Eliza took the carving, touched by the gesture. "It's beautiful. Among my people, gifts are given to show appreciation, respect." He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. "I agreed to consider the marriage because I had already begun to honor what I saw in you. The arrangement your uncle proposed gave me reason to know you better." The implication of his words sent warmth spreading through Eliza's chest. "And now? Now I know that any union between us must come from mutual choice, not coercion." His expression grew serious. "Your uncle's promises about protecting our land are empty. The papers from Washington are already signed. They will take more of our territory regardless of any marriage." Eliza's breath caught. "How do you know this?" "I have friends among the cavalry who can read government dispatches. The decision was made months ago." His eyes held hers. "Your uncle is using you, using us both, to gain favor with Washington while the plans are implemented." Anger flared within Eliza, not just at her uncle's deception, but at the injustice of it all. "What can we do?" "That depends," Ashki said, watching her carefully. "On what you want." The question hung between them, heavy with implication. Eliza looked at the carved bird in her palm, then back at the man before her, the warrior whose strength was matched by his gentleness, whose wisdom had been forged in suffering, whose eyes now regarded her with something far deeper than diplomatic calculation. In that moment she recognized the truth that had been growing within her since their first encounter. Whatever began as political maneuvering had transformed into something authentic and unexpected. "I want to choose my own path," she said softly, echoing her words from days earlier. Then, her heart racing, she added, "And I find myself wanting that path to include you, not because of my uncle's schemes, but despite them." Ashki's expression remained serious, but his eyes softened. "Such a path would not be easy. Your people might shun you. Mine might question your intentions." "I'm aware of the difficulties," Eliza acknowledged, "but I've never felt more certain of anything." Slowly, deliberately, Ashki reached for her hand. The touch was simple yet profound, a bridge crossing the divide between their worlds. "Then we will make our own arrangement, Eliza Morgan. Not your uncle's, not the government's, ours." As the sun began its descent, casting long shadows across the canyon walls, they spoke of possibilities neither had dared consider before. A marriage of true choice. A life built on mutual respect and growing affection. A stand against the machinations that sought to use their union for political gain. When they finally rode back toward the fort, side by side on separate horses this time, Eliza felt a sense of clarity and purpose that had eluded her since her arrival in Arizona territory. Whatever came next, she would face it not as a pawn, but as a woman who had found unexpected strength and unexpected love in the harsh beauty of this desert land. A crisp November wind swept across the fort as Eliza hurried toward the schoolhouse, her mind focused on the plans she and Ashki had been carefully crafting over the past 2 weeks. Their meetings had become more frequent, sometimes brief exchanges at the trading post, sometimes longer conversations on the pretext of her learning about Navajo culture for her teaching. Each encounter deepened her certainty that what had begun as her uncle's political scheme had transformed into something genuine and precious. Inside the schoolhouse, Sarah was already preparing materials for the day's lessons. Her friend looked up with a knowing smile as Eliza entered. "You're glowing again this morning," Sarah observed quietly. "Your cultural research must be quite illuminating." Eliza felt heat rise in her cheeks. "Sarah, You needn't explain," Sarah interrupted gently. "I've seen how you look at each other. Just be careful. Your uncle has been asking questions about your frequent absences." Eliza nodded, unpacking her teaching materials. "We're planning to speak with him today, together." Sarah's eyes widened. "Are you certain that's wise? William Morgan isn't a man who takes well to having his plans altered." "We can't continue this deception," Eliza replied. "Ashki has learned that the reservation boundaries are already being redrawn. Regardless of any alliance my uncle claims to be brokering, the marriage he's arranging is just a performance to make himself look successful, while the government takes more Navajo land." Sarah sighed. "I suspected as much, but what will you do?" "Ashki and I will marry," Eliza said, the words sending a thrill through her despite the circumstances. "But on our terms, not my uncle's. We've already spoken with some of the tribal elders who support Ashki, those who see through my uncle's empty promises." The arrival of students interrupted their conversation, but Sarah squeezed Eliza's hand in silent support before turning to greet the children. Throughout the morning lessons, Eliza found her thoughts repeatedly drifting to the confrontation that lay ahead. She and Ashki had agreed to meet at the Indian Agency office at midday, when her uncle would be expecting reports from the cavalry scouts. When the time came, Eliza dismissed her students and made her way across the fort to the agency building, her heart hammering against her ribs. Ashki was already waiting outside, looking formidable in his finest clothing, his long hair tied back neatly. The sight of him steadied her nerves. "Are you ready?" he asked quietly as she approached. "Yes," she replied, drawing strength from his presence. Together they entered the building and found her uncle in his office, examining maps spread across his desk. His expression when he looked up was first surprised, then calculatingly pleased. "Well, this is a fortuitous meeting," William said, standing to greet them. "I was just reviewing the proposed settlement areas. Your timing is excellent." "We need to speak with you, Uncle," Eliza began firmly. "About the marriage arrangement you've been negotiating." William's smile broadened. "Ah, yes. I've had very positive communications from Washington about the symbolic importance of such a union. They're quite impressed with my diplomatic efforts." "The arrangement you've proposed is unacceptable," Ashki stated, his voice level but authoritative. "We are aware that the land agreements have already been finalized. Your promise of protected boundaries in exchange for this marriage is empty." William's expression hardened. "I don't know what you think you've learned, but I assure you—" "We've seen the dispatches, Uncle," Eliza interrupted. "The orders to redraw the reservation boundaries were signed months ago." A tense silence filled the room as William assessed them both, his diplomatic mask slipping to reveal cold calculation. "Politics is a complex game, my dear. Sometimes appearances matter as much as realities. The marriage would still serve important purposes for both sides." "We will marry," Ashki stated, causing William's eyebrows to rise in surprise. "But not as part of your arrangement, not as symbols in your political theater." Eliza stepped closer to Ashki, taking his hand openly. "We choose to marry because we wish to, not because you orchestrated it. And we will not allow our union to be used to placate the Navajo people while their land is taken." William's face darkened with anger. "This is absurd. You've known each other for barely a month. You're being naive, Eliza, throwing away an opportunity to be part of something historically significant." "On the contrary," she replied calmly, I believe what we're doing is far more significant than a political maneuver designed to advance your career. We're choosing to bridge our worlds through genuine understanding and respect. The tribal council meets tomorrow, Ashki added. I will inform them of the true nature of the boundary agreements and of our decision to marry independently of those arrangements. William slammed his hand on the desk. You'll destroy months of careful negotiations. The Navajo will resist the new boundaries if they believe they've been deceived. They have been deceived, Eliza said quietly. By you. You ungrateful girl, William hissed, his facade of benevolence completely gone. I took you in when you had nothing, gave you position and purpose here, and this is how you repay me. By undermining my work and running off with, he gestured dismissively at Ashki, with this savage. Ashki remained impassive at the insult, but Eliza felt fury rise within her. Ashki has shown more honor and honesty in our brief acquaintance than you have demonstrated since my arrival, she replied, her voice shaking with controlled anger. He respects me as a person with my own mind and heart, not as a pawn to be moved about for your advantage. You'll regret this, William warned, his voice low. Both of you. I'll have you removed from the teaching position immediately. You'll be sent back east on the next available transport. You can dismiss me from the school, Eliza acknowledged, but you cannot send me anywhere. I'm a grown woman, not your ward. My father's legacy provides me enough to make my own way. Among the Navajo, William scoffed. You have no idea what kind of life you're choosing, the hardship, the primitive conditions. I choose Ashki, she interrupted firmly, and with him, a life of truth rather than manipulation. Whatever hardships come, we will face them together. William's face contorted with rage, but before he could respond, Thomas Wilson appeared at the doorway. Sir, the cavalry commander has arrived for your meeting, he announced, his eyes widening as he took in the tense tableau before him. This discussion isn't finished, William growled. For us it is, Ashki replied calmly, guiding Eliza toward the door. We came out of respect, to inform you of our decision directly. Now we have done so. As they stepped outside into the bright afternoon sunlight, Eliza felt both trembling with adrenaline and strangely liberated. He'll try to stop us, she murmured. He can try, Ashki replied, his voice certain. But our path is our own now. They walked together toward the edge of the fort, where the trading post marked the boundary between the military installation and the Navajo settlement. There, Sarah was waiting as arranged, along with Lily and 2 tribal elders who had agreed to support their union. What happened? Sarah asked anxiously. Exactly what we expected, Eliza replied. He was furious. One of the elders, a dignified woman named Dolly, stepped forward. Then we must move quickly. The agent will try to prevent this union now that it no longer serves his purpose. We've prepared a place for you with our family until the wedding, Lily told Eliza excitedly, taking her hand. You can learn more of our ways before you become my sister. Eliza felt a surge of emotion at the girl's easy acceptance. Thank you, Lily. Sarah embraced her friend tightly. I've packed your personal belongings as you asked. Thomas will bring them to you tonight. She lowered her voice. He doesn't agree with what your uncle has been doing. He wants to help. We should go now, Ashki said, glancing back toward the agency building where activity had increased. Word spreads quickly. As they prepared to depart, Eliza felt a moment of trepidation about the dramatic step she was taking, leaving behind the relative comfort and familiarity of the fort for life among the Navajo. Yet looking at Ashki, at the strength and integrity evident in his bearing, she knew with certainty that she was choosing the right path. The next week passed in a whirlwind of preparation and learning. Living among Ashki's extended family, Eliza began to understand the depth and richness of Navajo culture, the interconnectedness with the natural world, the importance of balance and harmony, the strength of community bonds. While some regarded her with suspicion, many welcomed her efforts to learn their language and customs. True to Eliza's prediction, her uncle attempted to interfere, first by sending Thomas with offers of reconciliation if she would come to her senses, then by appealing to the military commander to prevent what he termed an inappropriate liaison. But the commander, weary of William Morgan's political machinations, declined to involve the military in what he deemed a personal matter. The tribal council meeting that Ashki had mentioned proved pivotal. There, he revealed the truth about the boundary agreements while also announcing their intention to marry. Some council members were outraged by the government's deception, but others, particularly the younger leaders, saw Ashki and Eliza's union as a different kind of bridge between their peoples, one built on honesty and mutual respect rather than political expediency. On a clear, cold morning in early December, Eliza stood beside Ashki as both Navajo blessing ceremonies and elements of a Christian service were combined in a unique wedding that symbolized their shared journey. Sarah stood as witness, along with Thomas Wilson, who had finally chosen to openly oppose William Morgan's schemes. Lily beamed with happiness as she participated in the ceremony, officially gaining Eliza as a sister. William Morgan was conspicuously absent, having requested reassignment to another post after his credibility with both the Navajo Council and his military counterparts had been damaged by the revelations of his duplicity. As Eliza and Ashki completed the ceremonial steps that united them in marriage, she reflected on the extraordinary path that had led her to this moment. From a sheltered life in Boston to the vast, harsh beauty of the Arizona territory. From her uncle's unwelcome political arrangement to a love that had blossomed unexpectedly amid challenging circumstances. The traditional Navajo blessing was spoken over them. May you walk in beauty. May beauty be before you, behind you, above you, below you, all around you. May you walk together in harmony through all the seasons of your lives. Ashki took her hands in his eyes holding hers with an intensity that made her heart swell. You were forced to come here, he said softly, for her ears alone. Then forced toward a marriage neither of us chose. But I believe the Creator had a greater plan than your uncle's schemes. I believe that too, Eliza replied, her voice steady with conviction. What began as coercion became the greatest choice I've ever made. Later, as they stood together watching the sunset paint the desert in hues of gold and crimson, Ashki wrapped his arm around her shoulders. My grandfather used to say that the most beautiful things emerge from the harshest conditions, he told her, like flowers pushing through stone. Eliza leaned against him, feeling a profound sense of peace despite the uncertainties that lay ahead. There would be challenges, prejudices to overcome, political battles still to fight for the rights and lands of Ashki's people. But they would face them together, their union a testament to the possibility of understanding across the deepest divides. They forced me to marry the scarred Navajo warrior, she murmured, reaching up to gently trace the mark on his face that told the story of his courage. But you loved me before you ever saw me, and I learned to love you by truly seeing you. Ashki smiled, the expression transforming his solemn features. And now we write our own story, he said, not the one others would write for us. As the last light faded from the sky and the first stars appeared, they turned together toward the dwelling that would be their home, a place where two worlds would meet and, perhaps, find harmony.